17 people walked past him. 17. A man bleeding on the pavement, his motorcycle twisted metal beside him. They had their reasons, always do. But one 16-year-old girl named Maya couldn't live with herself if she didn't stop. She had no idea that her choice would set something in motion. Something that would arrive exactly 72 hours later with the thunder of 250 engines. What those bikers did when they found her, it wasn't just a thank you. It was something else entirely. Something that would change how an entire town saw the world. Before we dive into this story, do me one favor. Think about the last time you saw someone who needed help. Did you stop? Did you keep walking? Be honest with yourself. Because what you're about to hear isn't just about Maya or Daniel or those bikers. It's about all of us. And by the end, you're going to have to decide who you want to be. Now, let me take you to Ridgemont, Pennsylvania. A town that forgot something important. Something it was about to remember the hard way. Where are you watching from? I'd love to hear from you. There are places in America where the highway doesn't just pass through. It becomes the heartbeat of everything. Ridgemont, Pennsylvania is one of those places. Route 47 cuts right through the center of town, a two-lane artery that's been carrying travelers, truckers, and wanderers for over 70 years. And for most of that time, Ridgemont was known for something. Something you don't see much anymore. People here used to stop. If your car broke down on Route 47 in 1970, you wouldn't wait more than 10 minutes before someone pulled over. Didn't matter if they knew you. Didn't matter if they were running late. That's just what you did. The diner, Sally's Place, it was called back then, had a coffee fund. Free coffee for stranded travelers. The mechanic, old Tom Bradley, he'd come out at 2 in the morning if you needed him. No extra charge. That was Ridgemont. That was the code. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Maybe it started after that lawsuit in '95, when a Good Samaritan got sued by the person he pulled from a wrecked car. Maybe it was the economy, everyone working 2 jobs, no time to breathe, let alone stop. Maybe it was the phones. Everybody's got their face buried in a screen now, walking past the whole world like it's not even there. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe we all just got scared. Scared of getting involved. Scared of being late. Scared of the mess, the responsibility, the risk. By 2024, Ridgemont had become just another highway town where people passed through but never really saw each other. The diner's still there, different owners now, no coffee fund. Tom Bradley's shop closed 15 years ago. And Route 47? It's just asphalt now. A place to get through, not a place to stop. You can feel it when you walk down Main Street. People don't make eye contact like they used to. Everyone's in a hurry, even when they've got nowhere to be. There's a distance now, an invisible wall between my problem and someone else's problem. And somehow, without anyone really deciding it, everything became someone else's problem. The older folks remember when it was different. They'll tell you about the time the whole town showed up to rebuild the Fletcher's barn after the fire, or how everyone took turns bringing meals to the widow 3 doors down. They'll tell you these stories with this look in their eyes, half nostalgia, half grief. Like they're mourning something that died so quietly, nobody thought to hold a funeral. And the younger generation? They've never known anything different. This is just how the world is. Cold. Disconnected. Everyone for themselves. That's the Ridgemont that existed on November 14th, 2024. A town that had forgotten how to stop. A place where 17 people could walk past a man bleeding on the pavement and not one of them would feel compelled to do anything about it. If you've ever felt like the world's gotten colder, like people don't stop for each other anymore, leave a comment saying, "I remember when we cared." Let's see how many of us still believe in that world. But on November 14th, that cold indifference would meet something it couldn't ignore. Someone who still believed in the old rules. Maya Reyes doesn't stand out. That's the first thing you need to understand about her. At 16, she's mastered the art of being invisible. She walks the hallways of Ridgemont High with her head down, earbuds in. Not because she's listening to music, but because it's easier that way. Easier to avoid the questions. Easier to avoid explaining why she can't go to football games or hang out after school or do any of the normal things 16-year-old girls are supposed to do. She's a junior, technically, but her life doesn't look like any junior's life should. Her alarm goes off at 5:30 every morning. She gets herself ready, makes sure there's something in the fridge for dinner later, leaves a note for her mom, who's just getting home from her shift at Mercy Hospital. Her mother, Rosa, works nights, has to. The pay differential keeps them afloat. Barely. Maya catches the early bus, gets to school by 7. She's not there for clubs or friends. She's there because she has to be, and because the building is warm and the library is quiet, and sometimes, if she's lucky, she can finish most of her homework before the day even starts. Then classes. Then at 3:15, while other kids are heading to practice or drama club or just freedom, Maya's walking the 8 blocks to Route 47 diner. The uniform's seen better days. The name tag sits slightly crooked no matter how many times she adjusts it. Her shift runs 3:30 to 8, 5 days a week. She pours coffee, takes orders, wipes down tables, smiles at truckers and travelers who never remember her face. Tips are inconsistent. Some days are good. Most days aren't. But every dollar matters. There's one thing Maya wears that doesn't fit the uniform. An old military jacket. Faded green, patches on the shoulders, a name stitched over the chest pocket. Reyes. Her father's jacket. Carlos Reyes, Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan. He made it through the war. Made it home. It was the cancer that got him 2 years ago. Maya was 14. She wears that jacket over her uniform during the walk to work. Wears it on the walk home. It's too big for her, swallows her small frame, but she won't take it off. Can't take it off. It still smells like him somehow. Or maybe she just wants it to. The patches tell stories she never got to hear. The worn fabric holds memories she's terrified of forgetting. After her diner shift, she goes home, heats up dinner, does homework until her eyes blur. On weekends, there's another shift at Morrison's grocery, stocking shelves, running register. She's saving for college, supposedly. But most of what she makes goes to keeping the lights on, keeping food on the table, keeping them in the house they've lived in since she was 4. Nobody at school really knows Maya Reyes. She's the quiet girl in the back row. The one who doesn't raise her hand. The one you forget is even there until the teacher calls attendance. And that's fine by Maya. She doesn't have time for friendships that require maintenance. Doesn't have energy for pretending her life is normal. But here's what you need to understand about invisible people. They see everything. They notice things. The way people look away from uncomfortable situations. The way crowds part around problems instead of addressing them. The way the world has learned to step over what it doesn't want to deal with. And they remember what their fathers taught them. Now, before we go further, you need to understand something else. Something about a world that exists parallel to Ridgemont. A world most people misunderstand completely. There's a culture out there, brotherhood, really, that operates on codes most folks have forgotten. Motorcycle clubs. Bikers. To most people, they're outlaws, troublemakers, dangerous men in leather. But to those who know, who've served, who've lived by codes of honor when the rest of the world abandoned them, bikers are something different entirely. They're men and women who believe in loyalty when everyone else believes in convenience. Who believe in showing up when everyone else believes in looking away. Who remember that some debts must be paid, some respect must be shown, and some people, especially those who've served, who've bled for this country, deserve better than being forgotten. Remember that, because it's about to matter more than you can imagine. Maya's shift was ending at 6 that Tuesday evening. She had no idea that the next 30 minutes would define everything that came after. Daniel Cross was 68 years old, but his hands looked older. Scarred, weathered, the kind of hands that had held things no hands should have to hold. He'd been 19 when they sent him to Vietnam. 19 years old, fresh out of a Pennsylvania steel town, thinking he understood what war meant. He came back at 21 understanding that he'd never understand anything the same way again. 3 tours. Army infantry. He doesn't talk about what he saw there, what he did there. Men like Daniel learned a long time ago that the people who ask don't really want to know, and the people who need to know don't have to ask. The scars tell enough of the story. Some you can see. Most you can't. He came home to a country that didn't want to look at him. No parades. No thank yous. Just a lot of turned backs and uncomfortable silences. He tried to build a normal life. Married young. Had a daughter. Worked at the same steel mill his father had. But the war followed him home. The nightmares. The sounds that made him hit the floor. The feeling that he was always waiting for something terrible to happen. His wife tried. God knows she tried. But by the time his daughter turned 8, his marriage was over. Can't blame her. Living with ghosts is hard when they're not your own. Daniel found his peace, or something like it, on 2 wheels. Started riding motorcycles in his 30s. Joined Rolling Thunder, a motorcycle club made up entirely of veterans and their supporters, dedicated to accounting for prisoners of war and missing in action soldiers. These men became his real family. Brothers who understood the weight he carried because they carried the same weight. They didn't need him to explain. They didn't need him to be anything other than what he was. He lived alone in a small house outside Harrisburg. Never remarried. His daughter called sometimes, holidays, birthdays. They loved each other in that distant way broken families do. And he rode. Rode to remember the brothers who didn't make it home. Rode to forget the ones who did but couldn't live with it. Rode because the wind and the road and the rumble of the engine beneath him were the only things that quieted the noise in his head. On November 14th, 2024, Daniel was riding to his brother's funeral in Ohio. David had been 70, heart attack, sudden. They'd grown apart over the years the way brothers do, but blood is blood. Daniel left early that Tuesday morning, his motorcycle loaded for the three-state journey. He'd ridden that route 100 times. Knew every curve, every truck stop, every stretch where you could open it up and feel something close to free. Daniel was carrying something in his saddlebag that day. Something he'd kept for 47 years, carried through 3 tours, through a failed marriage, through decades of trying to make peace with memories that refused to rest. A challenge coin from his platoon. By the end of this story, it would be in Maya's hands. At 5:47 that evening, Daniel's front tire hit a slick of oil some trucker had leaked at the Route 47 intersection. What happened next would be captured by 3 different cameras and 17 different consciences. The oil slick was maybe 3 feet wide. In different circumstances, Daniel would have seen it, adjusted, been fine. But the sun was setting right in his line of sight, and by the time he registered the dark shimmer on the asphalt, his front tire was already sliding. The motorcycle went down hard. Metal screaming against pavement, sparks, the sickening sound of impact. Daniel hit the ground and tumbled, his body rolling twice before coming to rest 15 feet from his bike. For a moment, everything was still. Then Daniel moved, tried to push himself up. His left arm wouldn't work right. His vision blurred. He got to his knees, swaying, and that's when the pain hit. Ribs, definitely broken. Something wrong with his leg. Blood running down the side of his face, hot and sticky. He collapsed back onto the pavement, breathing hard, trying to stay conscious. The gas station security camera caught all of it. So did the traffic camera at the intersection. And so did the dash cam of a car stopped at the red light. 3 angles of the same moment. 3 witnesses to what came next. Person number 1 was a businessman, 40-something, good suit. He was walking out of the convenience store, phone pressed to his ear. He saw Daniel on the ground, looked right at him, slowed his pace for just a second, then kept walking, kept talking, got in his car, and drove away. Person number 2 and 3 were a couple, mid-30s, coming out of the grocery store with bags. The wife saw Daniel first, grabbed her husband's arm, pointed. They stood there for maybe 10 seconds. The wife said something. Later, she'd tell police. She said, "Someone will call it in," and the husband nodded. They put their groceries in the car and left. Persons 4 through 7 were teenagers. High school age, probably seniors. They saw Daniel and did something worse than ignoring him. They filmed it. Pulled out their phones, got close enough to get good footage of a man bleeding and struggling to breathe, laughed about something, and posted it to social media before walking away. One of them captioned it, "Dude wiped out LOL." Person number 8 was running late for work. Person 9 was afraid of being sued if they helped, and something went wrong. Person 10 thought Daniel was drunk, saw the motorcycle, made an assumption, decided it wasn't their problem. Persons 11 through 15 had other places to be, other things to worry about, other reasons that made sense to them in the moment. Person 16 was elderly, probably couldn't have helped physically, but didn't call for help either. Person 17 glanced over, saw someone else looking, assumed that person would handle it. 17 people. 12 minutes. A man who'd served his country, who'd survived war, lying on cold pavement while the world walked past. Rain started to fall. Slow at first, then steady. Daniel's blood mixed with rainwater, running into the gutter. If this makes your blood boil, if you can't stand a world where we leave our veterans bleeding on the pavement, comment and know more. Show me we're better than this. Person number 18 was different. She had $6 in her pocket, a shift that just ended, and a father who taught her that some things matter more than being on time. Maya was exhausted. The kind of exhausted that lives in your bones, that makes every step feel like you're walking through water. Her shift had been long. A tour bus had stopped. 30 people all wanting different things, all in a hurry, most of them leaving pocket change for tips. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. She just wanted to get home, heat up some leftovers, maybe finish her English essay before she passed out. She was walking toward the bus stop, her father's jacket pulled tight against the rain, when she saw him. A man on the ground. Motorcycle on its side 20 feet away, still leaking something dark onto the wet pavement. She stopped, stared. Her first instinct was the same as everyone else's. This isn't my problem. Someone else will handle it. She didn't have time for this. The bus came in 4 minutes, and if she missed it, the next one wasn't for an hour. Her mom would worry. She'd be home late. She had homework. She had responsibilities. But her feet wouldn't move. She stood there, frozen, watching this man try to lift his head, watching him struggle. And nobody was stopping. Cars were driving past. The gas station right there, lights on, people inside, and nobody was coming out. Then she saw it. The vest. Even from 30 feet away, even through the rain, she could see the patches. Military patches. Veteran patches. The same kind her father used to wear. The same one still on the jacket she was wearing right now. Her breath caught in her throat. She was 16 years old. She was nobody. She was a kid who could barely keep herself together, let alone help a grown man who was clearly hurt. What could she possibly do? She wasn't strong enough to move him. She didn't know first aid. She was just a girl in a diner uniform with $6 in her pocket and a life that was already too heavy to carry. But then she heard her father's voice. Not really. He'd been gone 2 years. But the memory was so clear it might as well have been real. She was 12 years old, sitting in their kitchen, watching him polish his boots. She'd asked him something, some kid question about why he went to war, why anyone would choose that. And he'd looked at her with those serious eyes he got sometimes and said words she'd never forgotten. We take care of our own, Mija. Veterans, we're brothers and sisters. Doesn't matter if we served together or never met. We're family. You see one in trouble, you stop. You help. Always. Because somebody stopped for me once, in a place far from home, and that's the only reason I'm sitting here with you right now. You understand? She nodded, not really understanding. But she understood now. Maya ran. Dropped her bag, didn't think, just ran. She fell to her knees beside him, rain soaking through her uniform, and pulled out her phone with shaking hands. 911. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. There's been a motorcycle accident. Route 47, by the Chevron station. He's bleeding. He needs help now. The man was conscious, but barely. His eyes tried to focus on her. She pulled off her diner apron, the one she'd need for tomorrow's shift, the one she couldn't afford to replace, and pressed it against the gash on his head. Her hands were small, and she was terrified she was doing it wrong, but she kept pressure on it like she'd seen in movies, like instinct told her to do. You're okay, she told him, though she had no idea if that was true. Help's coming. You're going to be okay. The gas station owner, Mr. Park, finally came running out. He'd seen her through the window, seen her stop when nobody else would, and shame had finally driven him outside. He brought towels, helped her keep the man stable, stood with her in the rain until the ambulance arrived 5 minutes later. The paramedics took over with professional efficiency. They asked her questions. What happened? How long had he been down? Was he conscious when she found him? She answered as best she could. They loaded him onto a stretcher, into the ambulance. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, squeezed Maya's shoulder. You probably saved his life, sweetheart. That was brave. Maya didn't feel brave. She felt wet and cold, and like her hands wouldn't stop shaking. They asked for her name, her contact information, for the report. She gave it to them. Then the ambulance pulled away, sirens fading into the rain-heavy air, and Maya was left standing there on the pavement with Mr. Park, who kept thanking her, kept saying he should have come out sooner. She'd missed her bus. She was soaked. Her apron was ruined. She'd have to walk home, and it would take 40 minutes in the rain. But a man who'd served his country wasn't dying alone on cold pavement. And somehow, that felt like enough. Maya gave her name to the paramedics and then disappeared into the rain. She thought that was the end of it. She had no idea that Daniel Cross had friends. A lot of them. And they were already making phone calls. Big Jake Thornton got the call at 7:15 that evening. He was in his garage, hands deep in the engine of his Harley, when his phone started buzzing. Hospital number. His stomach dropped before he even answered. In their world, hospital calls never meant good news. This is Jacob Thornton. Yeah, that's me. I'm calling from Mercy Hospital in Ridgemont. You're listed as the emergency contact for Daniel Cross. He's been in an accident. Jake had ridden with Daniel for 23 years. They'd met at a Rolling Thunder rally. Both of them veterans trying to find something that felt like the brotherhood they'd lost when they came home. Daniel had become more than a riding buddy. He was family. The kind of brother you choose, not the kind you're born with. How bad? He's stable. Broken ribs, concussion, severe road rash. He's unconscious right now, but the doctor thinks he'll be okay. Mr. Thornton, he was on the ground for nearly 15 minutes before anyone helped him. If it hadn't been for a young girl who stopped. Jake didn't hear the rest. 15 minutes. His jaw clenched so hard his teeth hurt. He thanked the nurse, hung up, and immediately dialed another number. Didn't even think about it. Just dialed. Tommy? It's Jake. Daniel went down on Route 47. He's alive, but we got a problem. Tommy Reeves was the president of the Rolling Thunder chapter in central Pennsylvania. Former Marine, Vietnam era, the kind of man who'd earned every bit of respect he commanded. When Tommy spoke, people listened. And when Tommy was angry, people felt it in their bones. Tell me. Jake told him everything the nurse had said. 15 minutes on the ground. People walking past. A 16-year-old girl being the only one to stop. By the time he finished, Tommy's breathing had changed. That controlled fury Jake had heard before. Give me that hospital's number. And find out who that girl is. We owe her. Already on it. What happened next was something most people don't understand about motorcycle clubs, about the brotherhood that exists in that world. It's not a phone tree. It's a network. A web of connections built over decades, spanning states, crossing club boundaries that civilians think matter but don't when it comes to taking care of their own. Tommy called the chapter vice president. The vice president called the road captain. Within 20 minutes, the story had spread to every member of Rolling Thunder in Pennsylvania. But it didn't stop there. These men knew people. They had brothers in other clubs, other chapters, other states. Hells Angels, Veterans MC, Iron Order. Clubs that might not always see eye to eye on everything, but agreed on this. A veteran doesn't get left bleeding on pavement. And someone who stops to help when nobody else will? That's someone who deserves recognition. By 8 o'clock, bikers in 3 states knew Daniel Cross's name. By 8:30, someone had gotten their hands on the security footage. Gas stations have cameras. Traffic lights have cameras. And bikers have connections. People who owe favors. People who understand that sometimes information needs to flow outside official channels. They watched the footage together, dozens of them, in clubhouses and garages and living rooms. Watched 17 people walk past. Watched teenagers laugh and film it. Watched Daniel struggle and collapse while the world ignored him. The anger in those rooms was palpable, thick enough to choke on. These were rough men, hard men, men who'd seen and done things that left marks. But watching one of their own, a brother, a veteran, treated like trash on the street, that hit different. Then they watched person number 18, a small girl in a too big military jacket, running through the rain, dropping to her knees, staying with him. They watched her press her apron to his head, watched her refuse to leave until help arrived. They watched her give her name to the paramedics, Maya Reyes. Tommy Reeves made the decision, but it was unanimous before he even said it out loud. We need to find this girl. We need to thank her properly. And we need to show this town what happens when someone actually gives a damn. The calls went out again. More clubs. More chapters. More brothers and sisters who believed in a code that the rest of the world seemed to have forgotten. They had a name. Maya Reyes, 16 years old, worked at the Route 47 diner. By 9 o'clock, they had her address. Finding Maya Reyes wouldn't be hard. What they planned to do when they found her, that would take 72 hours to organize. And it would require every biker within 200 miles. Maya walked home in the rain. 43 minutes, her sneakers squelching with every step, her father's jacket doing its best, but not quite enough to keep her dry. She ran through what she'd tell her mom. Maybe nothing. Her mom had enough to worry about without adding this to the pile. Besides, what was there to tell? She'd helped someone. That was it. End of story. When she got home, the house was dark except for the kitchen light her mom always left on. There was a note on the counter. Working double shift, home tomorrow morning. Leftovers in fridge. Love you, Mija. Maya stared at the note for a long moment, feeling the loneliness settle over her like a familiar blanket. She heated up rice and chicken, ate standing at the counter, and tried not to think about the man's face, the blood, the way his eyes had struggled to focus on her. She didn't tell her mom. Didn't tell anyone. Wednesday morning came too early. She was exhausted, having barely slept, her mind replaying the accident every time she closed her eyes. School was school, invisible as always. Nobody asked why she looked tired. Nobody noticed the scrapes on her knees from kneeling on wet pavement. She sat in the back of her classes, took notes, and counted down the hours until she could leave. But when she got to Morrison's grocery for her Wednesday shift, her boss, Mr. Patterson, was waiting. He was a thin man with a perpetually irritated expression, the kind of person who saw employees as problems waiting to happen rather than people trying to make a living. "You were supposed to be here at 6 yesterday." Maya's stomach dropped. She'd completely forgotten. In the chaos of helping Daniel, of missing her bus, of the long walk home, she'd forgotten she was supposed to work her evening shift at the store. "Mr. Patterson, I'm so sorry. There was an emergency. I had to help someone who was hurt. And I don't pay you to be a hero, Maya. I pay you to show up on time and do your job. This is the second time you've been unreliable." "The second time? I've never." 2 weeks ago, you asked to leave early. "Family emergency," you said. "My mom was sick. I had to. I don't care about the excuses." His voice was flat, final. "You miss one more shift, you show up late one more time, and you're done. We clear." Maya nodded, throat tight, fighting back tears she refused to let him see. She'd lost 2 hours of pay, 2 hours she couldn't afford to lose. She put on her vest and started stocking shelves, her hands moving automatically while her mind spun with calculations. Rent was due in 2 weeks. They were already behind. Those 2 hours mattered. Thursday at school, she overheard some kids talking about a viral video, some guy wiping out on a motorcycle. They thought it was funny. Maya kept walking, head down, invisible. They had no idea she was the reason that video ended differently than it could have. They had no idea she existed at all. Thursday evening, after her diner shift, Maya did something she probably shouldn't have. She took the bus to Mercy Hospital. Visiting hours were over, but she slipped in through the emergency entrance and found her way to Daniel Cross's room. A nurse almost stopped her, but Maya said she was his niece, and the lie came out so smoothly it surprised her. Daniel was asleep. Unconscious, really. Machines beeped softly around him. He looked smaller in the hospital bed, vulnerable in a way that made Maya's chest ache. She stood there for a few minutes, not sure what to say, not sure why she'd even come. Finally, she pulled out a scrap of paper from her backpack, wrote 4 words, "Get better, Maya," and left it on his bedside table. Then she slipped back out into the night. When she got home that evening, her mom was awake. That was unusual. Rosa worked nights, slept days. Seeing her in the kitchen at 8 in the evening meant something was wrong. "Mija, we need to talk." Maya's heart sank. She knew that tone. "We got another notice from the landlord. We're 3 months behind on rent. He's saying if we don't pay by the end of November, he's starting eviction proceedings." 3 months. Maya did the math in her head. That was over $4,000. They didn't have $4,000. They barely had 400. "I'm picking up extra shifts," her mom continued, her voice tired beyond measure. "And I know you're working as much as you can. But Mija, I don't know if it's going to be enough." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Her mom hugged her, and Maya held on tight, breathing in the familiar smell of hospital antiseptic and the lavender lotion her mom always used. When they pulled apart, Maya went to her room, sat on her bed, and stared at the wall. $4,000. Eviction. Where would they even go? She didn't sleep that night. Just lay in the dark, wearing her father's jacket, trying to figure out a math problem that didn't have a solution. If you know what it's like to do the right thing and feel like nobody notices, like you're carrying the world alone, hit that subscribe button. This story is for you. Because what's about to happen proves that someone always notices. Maya had no idea that while she was lying awake worrying about rent, 70 miles away, 250 bikers were in a parking lot, finalizing a plan. And in 48 hours, her entire life would change. By Wednesday afternoon, the security footage had leaked. Nobody knows exactly who posted it first. Some say it was one of the teenagers who filmed Daniel on the ground. Others say it was someone from the gas station who thought the world needed to see what happened. Either way, by Thursday morning, the video was everywhere. Local Facebook groups shared it. The Ridgemont community page, the county news forum. Then it jumped to Twitter, to Reddit, to platforms where stories like this catch fire and spread. The video showed everything. Daniel going down, 17 people walking past, and then Maya, small and soaked, running to help when nobody else would. The town split almost immediately. Some people saw a hero, a 16-year-old girl with more courage than all those adults combined. "This is what we should be teaching our kids," one woman commented. "She's what's right with this generation," another wrote. The diner where Maya worked started getting calls. People wanting to leave tips for her, wanting to tell her she did good. But others saw something different. "She could have been hurt," one parent wrote. "What if he'd been violent? What if helping him made things worse? She's 16. She should have just called 911 and kept walking." Some criticized her for risking herself. Others questioned whether she did it for attention, whether she somehow knew she was being filmed. The internet does what the internet does, turns everything complicated, makes heroes and villains out of people who are just trying to survive. The local news picked it up Thursday afternoon. Channel 7, the station everyone in Ridgemont watches at 6 o'clock. "Teen saves veteran everyone ignored." That was the headline. They showed the footage, interviewed some of the diner customers who knew Maya, talked to Mr. Park at the gas station who admitted he should have come out sooner. The reporter tried to interview Maya, showed up at the high school, but Maya saw her coming and disappeared into the bathroom until the woman left. Maya didn't want attention, didn't want praise or criticism. She just wanted to be invisible again. But that ship had sailed. Something interesting happened at Morrison's grocery that day. Mr. Patterson saw the news story, recognized the girl they were talking about, realized that the emergency Maya had been late for wasn't an excuse. It was this. And for maybe the first time in his life, he felt genuinely ashamed. He called Maya into his office Friday morning, told her he was restoring the pay he'd docked, told her she wasn't on thin ice anymore. He didn't quite apologize, but it was close enough. But while the town was busy debating Maya's actions online, something else was happening. Something most people didn't notice at first. Motorcycles were showing up. One on Wednesday evening, parked outside the diner. Two more Thursday morning, at the gas station where Daniel went down. By Thursday afternoon, there were a dozen scattered around town, outside the hospital, near the high school, at the diner, just sitting there, engines off, riders standing around like they were waiting for something. The 17 people who walked past Daniel started to notice too. They'd been identified, not by name, not publicly, but people who knew them recognized them in the footage. The businessman got a visit at his office from two bikers who didn't threaten him, didn't even raise their voices, just asked him how he slept at night. The couple who kept walking found their car surrounded by motorcycles in the grocery store parking lot. Nobody touched it. Nobody said a word, just stood there until they drove away. The teenagers who filmed it and laughed? 3 bikers showed up at their school, talked to them in the parking lot. What was said isn't public, but those kids took the video down within an hour. People started to get nervous. Ridgemont wasn't used to bikers, wasn't used to this kind of presence. The police got calls, concerned citizens reporting suspicious activity, congregating motorcycles, men in leather vests who looked dangerous. The police drove by, talked to a few of them, but the bikers weren't doing anything illegal, just existing, just waiting. By Thursday morning, hour 71 since Daniel hit that pavement, Ridgemont residents were noticing something strange. Motorcycles, dozens of them, arriving from all directions, parking, waiting, and Maya had no idea they were there for her. Friday morning, hour 64, Maya woke up exhausted, the same as every morning, with no idea that anything was different. She got ready for school, left a note for her mom, caught the early bus. Just another day, just another stretch of hours to get through before she could collapse into bed and do it all again tomorrow. At Ridgemont High, she sat in the back of her English class, half listening to a lecture about symbolism in some book she'd barely had time to read. Her mind was elsewhere, on the rent they couldn't pay, on her mom's tired face, on the man in the hospital she'd left a note for. She wondered if he'd woken up yet, wondered if he even knew she'd been there. She had no idea that 70 miles away, in a parking lot outside Harrisburg, nearly 300 motorcycles were gathering. They'd been arriving since dawn. Rolling Thunder came first, Daniel's club, the brothers who'd known him longest. They came from Pennsylvania, from Ohio, from Maryland. Rough men in their 60s and 70s, veterans themselves, wearing their service on their vests like badges of honor. Then came Veterans MC, another club dedicated to those who'd served. Hell's Angels rode in from 2 chapters, independents who'd heard the call and answered it. Iron Order, Leathernecks MC, clubs that didn't always agree on everything, clubs that had their own territories and politics, but on this day, none of that mattered. By noon, hour 67, there were over 200 bikers in that parking lot, and they kept coming. Big Jake stood on the bed of a pickup truck, looking out over the sea of leather and chrome, American flags snapping in the November wind. These were his people. Hard people, complicated people, people the world often misunderstood or feared, but people who lived by codes that mattered. Loyalty, honor, respect, taking care of your own. Listen up, Jake's voice carried across the lot. We do this right. We're not here to scare anybody. We're not here to make a scene. We're here to thank a 16-year-old girl who did what grown men and women couldn't do. She stopped. She helped one of ours when the whole world walked past him. So we ride in formation. We stay respectful. We say thank you like she deserves to be thanked. Are we clear? A rumble of agreement, engines revving in acknowledgement. Tommy Reeves, the Rolling Thunder president, stepped up beside Jake. We've got something for her. It's not about the money, though God knows every one of you dug deep, and I'm grateful. It's about showing her that what she did mattered. That courage doesn't go unnoticed. Not in our world. They had prepared 3 things. A vest, custom-made, took 2 days to rush it, with patches that meant something in their world. An envelope, contributions from every rider there, some giving $20, some giving $200, whatever they could spare. And Daniel's challenge coin, the one he'd carried for 47 years, the one that had survived Vietnam and everything after. Daniel had woken up that morning, still groggy from medication, and when Jake told him the plan, Daniel had immediately reached for his coin. Give it to her, he'd said. She's earned it. At Mercy Hospital, hour 70, Daniel Cross was sitting up in bed, watching the news coverage of bikers gathering outside town. A nurse came in, saw what he was watching, looked nervous. Should we be concerned about this? She asked. Daniel smiled, the first real smile he'd managed since the accident. Those are my people, he said, and they're about to do something beautiful. Maya finished her last class at 3:15. Hour 71. She had a shift at the diner starting at 4, so she walked quickly, trying to make up time, completely unaware that her face had been circulating among biker clubs across 3 states. Completely unaware that plans were being finalized, that routes were being mapped, that 250 motorcycles were preparing to roll. At 4:30, hour 72 and a half, the bikers mounted up. They'd coordinated the timing down to the minute. The plan was simple. Arrive at Maya's house at exactly 5:47. 72 hours to the minute after Daniel went down. Because timing mattered. Because symbolism mattered. Because everything about this needed to honor what she'd done. They rolled out of the parking lot in formation, a river of metal and leather and thunder. People in towns along the route stopped and stared. Some cheered. Some looked frightened. But the bikers didn't stop, didn't break formation, just kept riding toward Ridgemont with a singular purpose. Maya's shift at the diner ended at 5:30. She clocked out, exhausted as always, grabbed her backpack, pulled on her father's jacket. Mr. Park, the gas station owner, came into the diner as she was leaving. He'd been coming in every day since Tuesday, leaving her $20 tips, trying to make up for not helping sooner. He nodded at her. She nodded back. Then she headed toward the bus stop. Hour 72. 5:47 was 17 minutes away. The sound reached Ridgemont before the bikes did. A rumble like distant thunder, growing louder. People came out of their houses, out of shops, standing on sidewalks trying to figure out what was happening. The police had been notified, but there was nothing to do. This wasn't illegal, wasn't threatening, just overwhelming. Maya heard it too. Stopped walking, turned toward the sound. Her street was 3 blocks away. She started walking faster, something telling her to get home, though she didn't know why. The motorcycles turned onto Birch Lane at exactly 5:47, 250 strong. They filled the entire street, parked in perfect formation, engines rumbling in unison before, one by one, they shut them down. The silence that followed was somehow louder than the engines had been. At 5:47 p.m., exactly 72 hours after Daniel hit that pavement, 250 motorcycles fired up their engines. Destination, for 12 Birch Lane. Maya's house. What happened when they arrived? You need to see this. Maya turned the corner onto Birch Lane and stopped breathing. Her street, the quiet, ordinary street where she'd lived since she was 4 years old, was gone. In its place was a sea of motorcycles. Hundreds of them. Chrome and leather and American flags, stretching as far as she could see. They lined both sides of the street, filled driveways, spilled onto lawns. And standing beside each bike was a person. Bikers in vests, arms crossed, silent, all of them looking in one direction. Toward her. Her first thought was terror. Pure, animal terror. She'd done something wrong. This was about the man she'd helped. Maybe she'd hurt him somehow. Maybe she wasn't supposed to touch him. Maybe his family was angry. Maybe these were bad people and she was in danger. Her hand went to her phone in her pocket, fingers shaking, trying to decide if she should run. Her neighbors were outside. Mrs. Patterson from next door, holding her toddler. The Johnsons across the street, standing on their porch looking bewildered. Mr. Garcia, the elderly man 2 houses down, gripping his cane. Everyone looked scared. Everyone was staring at the bikers, then at Maya, trying to understand what was happening. Maya stood frozen on the sidewalk, her backpack heavy on her shoulders, her father's jacket suddenly feeling too thin. 250 pairs of eyes on her. 250 strangers. She wanted to disappear, wanted to turn around and run, but her feet wouldn't move. Then one of them stepped forward. A massive man, easily 6'4", broad-shouldered, gray beard, wearing a vest covered in patches. He moved slowly, deliberately, his hands visible, non-threatening. When he reached the middle of the street, he stopped and removed his helmet. His voice was deep but gentle. Maya Reyes? She couldn't speak, could only nod. My name's Jake Thornton. We're friends of Daniel Cross, the man you saved on Tuesday. The world tilted. Daniel, the veteran, the accident. This was about that. Her voice came out small, barely a whisper. Is he okay? Jake's face softened. He's going to be fine. Thanks to you. I don't understand. Why are you all here? Jake looked back at the sea of bikers behind him, then back at Maya. Because you did something most people wouldn't. You stopped when 17 other people kept walking. You helped a veteran, one of our brothers, when the world decided he didn't matter. And we needed you to know that it mattered to us. That you matter to us. Maya's eyes were burning. She shook her head. I didn't do anything special. I just helped someone who needed help. That's exactly the point, Jake said. You did what anyone should do. But you were the only one who did it. And in our world, that means something. Behind Jake, the bikers began to move. Not threateningly. Respectfully. They removed their helmets, one by one, a wave of reverence spreading through the crowd. Some of these men were in their 70s. Vietnam veterans, like Daniel. Some were younger, Iraq, Afghanistan. Some were women, standing shoulder to shoulder with the men. All of them wearing their service, their brotherhood, their code of honor on their vests. Jake gestured for Maya to come closer. She hesitated, then walked forward on shaking legs. Her neighbors watched, still uncertain, still afraid. But Maya saw something in Jake's eyes that made her believe she was safe. Daniel would be here himself, Jake continued. But he's still in the hospital. Broken ribs, concussion. Doctor says another 10 minutes on that pavement, and he might not have made it. But he wanted us to come. He wanted us to say thank you the way we know how. Then Jake did something Maya didn't expect. This massive, intimidating man got down on one knee in front of her, meeting her eyes at her level. You honored one of ours when nobody else would. That makes you one of us. He stood and turned to the crowd. One biker stepped forward, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. She was holding something folded over her arm. A vest, black leather, custom-made, with patches carefully sewn on. This is for you, the woman said, her voice thick with emotion. She unfolded the vest, held it up. On the back was a patch that read, Honorary Member, Rolling Thunder. And beneath it, words stitched in gold thread, Courage isn't the size of your bike. It's the size of your heart. Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled over, hot on her cold cheeks. She couldn't stop them. Another biker stepped forward, an older man, probably 80, moving slowly but with dignity. He held an envelope. This is from all of us. Every rider here contributed. Some gave what they could. Others gave more. But every dollar in here represents respect. Gratitude. This is us saying that what you did won't be forgotten. Maya took the envelope with shaking hands. It was thick, heavy. She didn't open it. Couldn't process what it might mean. Then Big Jake reached into his vest pocket and pulled out something small. A coin. Worn, scratched, the edges smooth from decades of being carried. This is Daniel's challenge coin. From his platoon in Vietnam. He's carried it for 47 years. Through war. Through everything after. He wanted you to have it. Jake placed it in her palm, closed her fingers around it. The metal was warm from his body heat. Maya looked down at it. At the insignia she didn't fully understand but could feel the weight of, and something broke open inside her. All the exhaustion. All the loneliness. All the months of carrying the world on 16-year-old shoulders. It poured out in sobs she couldn't control. Jake wrapped his arms around her, this huge man she'd met 2 minutes ago, and held her while she cried. And behind him, the bikers began to clap. Slowly at first, then building. 250 people applauding a teenage girl in a too big military jacket who'd done nothing but the right thing. One by one, they approached her. Each biker took a moment, shook her hand, thanked her. Some of them cried too. One man, a Vietnam vet with a purple heart patch on his vest, saluted her. Another woman hugged her and whispered, "You gave us hope, sweetheart." "Thank you." Maya's mom pulled up in her car, home early from her shift, and froze when she saw the scene. Jake went to her, explained gently what was happening, and Rosa Reyes, this exhausted nurse who'd been working herself to death to keep her daughter fed, broke down crying in a stranger's arms. The neighbors started to understand, started to come closer. Mr. Garcia, the elderly veteran down the street, came out with his own military cap on, stood at attention, tears streaming down his weathered face. Mrs. Patterson brought out cookies, started offering them to the bikers, who accepted with gentle thanks. Maya stood in the middle of it all, holding a vest she didn't know if she deserved, an envelope she hadn't opened, and a coin that carried 47 years of history. And for the first time in 2 years, since her father died and her world became about survival instead of living, she didn't feel invisible. She felt seen. She felt valued. She felt like she mattered. If you believe the world needs more Mayas and more bikers who remember honor, hit subscribe. Show me there are more of us than the 17 who walked past. When the applause finally quieted, Maya tried to find words. Her voice came out broken, shaky, barely loud enough for the people closest to her to hear. I did what anyone should do." Big Jake stepped forward again, his presence commanding but gentle. "But you're the only one who did. That matters, Maya. In a world where 17 people walked past, you stopped. That's not nothing. That's everything." Maya looked down at the envelope still clutched in her hands. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside were bills, 20s, 50s, hundreds, more money than she'd ever seen in one place. She pulled out a note written on the back of a receipt, "From your brothers and sisters. 250 writers. You're not alone anymore." Her mother appeared beside her, having finally made her way through the crowd. Rosa's eyes were red, her nurse's scrubs still wrinkled from her shift. Jake had explained everything, but she needed to hear it from Maya. "Mija, is this real?" Maya nodded, unable to speak, and handed her the envelope. Rosa looked inside, and her knees nearly gave out. She grabbed Maya's shoulder to steady herself, her other hand covering her mouth. $47,000. More than a year's rent. More than their debt. More than they dared to hope for in their darkest moments lying awake at night, doing impossible math. But Jake wasn't finished. He placed his hand on Maya's shoulder, addressing both her and her mother now. "The money matters, I know, but that's not why we're here. We're here because Maya honored one of ours. And that makes her family. You both are family now. You understand what that means." Maya shook her head, tears still falling. "It means you're not alone anymore. You ever need anything, anything at all, you call. Car breaks down, you call. Someone gives you trouble, you call. You need help moving? Need a job reference? Need someone to show up? You call. We're 250 strong, and every single one of us will answer. That's what family means in our world." Rosa pulled Maya close, both of them crying now, holding each other in the middle of a street filled with strangers who'd become something else. Something Maya didn't have words for yet, but could feel in her bones. Then something unexpected happened. A man stepped forward from the back of the crowd, mid-40s, wearing a newer vest that didn't have as many patches as the others. His face was familiar. Maya had seen him in the security footage. The businessman. Person number 1. The man who'd walked past Daniel while on his phone. He stood before Maya, before all of them, and his voice cracked when he spoke. "I'm the one who walked past. I saw him on the ground, and I kept walking. I've had to live with that for 3 days, and it's been eating me alive." He looked at Maya, then at the bikers surrounding them. "I joined Veterans MC 2 days ago, not to make excuses, not to fix what I did, but because I never want to be that person again. The person who walks past someone who needs help. I'm sorry. To Daniel. To all of you. And especially to you, Maya. You showed me what I should have been." The silence was heavy. Then Jake stepped forward, extended his hand. The businessman took it, and they shook, A moment of forgiveness, of second chances, of the possibility that people can change when they're shown a better way. The crowd exhaled. Some nodded. Growth was possible. Redemption was possible, even for those who'd failed the first time. As the sun began to set over Birch Lane, casting long shadows across the motorcycles and the people gathered there, Maya felt something shift inside her. The exhaustion was still there. The grief for her father still lived in her chest. But underneath it all was something new. Something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Belonging. The knowledge that the world, or at least this part of it, still remembered how to care. But the story doesn't end there. Because what those bikers started that day, it rippled out in ways nobody expected. 6 months later, on a warm Saturday in May, Maya Reyes rode through the Pennsylvania countryside on a small Kawasaki Ninja 400. Beside her, keeping pace on his restored Harley, was Daniel Cross. Fully recovered, fully alive, and grinning like a man who'd been given a second chance he didn't take for granted. They were heading to a Rolling Thunder event, Maya's third one. She'd gotten her motorcycle license in February, saved up for the bike with money from the envelope the bikers had given her. Daniel had taught her to ride, patient and encouraging, treating her like the daughter he'd lost touch with years ago. They'd become family in the truest sense, not by blood, but by choice, by shared understanding, by the bond that forms when someone saves your life and you spend the rest of yours making sure they know it mattered. Ridgemont had changed. Not overnight, not dramatically, but in small, significant ways. People made eye contact now. When someone's car broke down on Route 47, 3 people stopped within minutes. The diner started a community board where people could post if they needed help, rides to medical appointments, assistance with groceries, someone to check on elderly neighbors. Mrs. Patterson organized a neighborhood watch, not to report suspicious activity, but to look out for each other. 3 of the 17 who'd walked past Daniel that day joined veteran support groups. They couldn't undo what they'd done, but they could be different going forward. The couple who'd kept walking now volunteered at the VA hospital every weekend. One of the teenagers who'd filmed and laughed spent his spring break building wheelchair ramps for disabled veterans. Redemption looked different for each of them, but it was real. Maya graduated high school that June with honors. The scholarship money helped, but so did the community that had formed around her. She was studying to be a paramedic at community college, inspired by the moment she'd knelt beside Daniel and realized that ordinary people could save lives if they just chose to act. Her mother still worked as a nurse, but only one job now. They'd caught up on rent, rebuilt their savings, started breathing again. And every year, on November 14th, something remarkable happened. Bikers from across 3 states gathered in Ridgemont for what they called Maya's Ride. It started with 50 motorcycles that first year. By year 3, it was over 400. They rode through town, stopped at the site where Daniel had gone down, and then gathered at the community center to raise money for a scholarship fund, specifically for teenagers who demonstrated courage in helping veterans. Maya helped organize it, standing beside Big Jake and Tommy Reeves and Daniel, watching this thing she'd started without meaning to grow into something bigger than any of them. The vest hung on Maya's bedroom wall, right above her desk, where she studied. She'd never worn it, felt like she hadn't earned it somehow, despite everything everyone told her. But she looked at it every day. Read those words stitched in gold thread. Courage isn't the size of your bike. It's the size of your heart. It reminded her of who she'd become, of the family she'd found, of the father who'd taught her to stop when others wouldn't. Mr. Park, the gas station owner, did something unexpected too. He started mentoring teenagers in Ridgemont, kids from struggling families, kids who felt invisible the way Maya once had. When people asked him why, he told them the truth. He'd been robbed twice in 5 years. Both times, people had watched and done nothing. He'd lost faith in humanity, convinced himself that self-preservation was the only rational choice. But watching Maya run to Daniel that rainy evening, watching her risk herself for a stranger, had broken something open in him. She gave me my faith back, he'd say. Reminded me who we could be if we tried. So what is this story really about? It's tempting to make it about bikers versus everyone else. About good people and bad people. About heroes and villains. But that would miss the point entirely. This story is about the choice we all face every single day. The choice to stop or keep walking. To see or look away. To care or convince ourselves it's not our problem. Maya Reyes wasn't special because she had some superpower the rest of us lack. She was special because she made a different choice than 17 other people in the same situation. And here's what matters most. Codes of honor still exist. Not just in motorcycle clubs, though they live it in ways the rest of us have forgotten, but in teachers who stay late to help struggling students, in neighbors who shovel elderly people's driveways without being asked, in strangers who return lost wallets, in anyone who chooses connection over convenience, courage over comfort. One act creates waves. Maya stopped for Daniel. The bikers showed up for Maya. Ridgemont started stopping for strangers. 3 of the 17 began making amends. Mr. Park started mentoring kids. And somewhere in all of that, a town remembered what it used to know, that we're responsible for each other. That community isn't something that happens to us. It's something we build, one choice at a time. Here's what I want you to do. Not for me. For Maya. For Daniel. For every person who ever felt invisible. If this story moved you, comment, I will stop. Make that promise. Be the 18th person who chooses differently. And subscribe, because every week I share stories of people like Maya who prove we're not as lost as we think. Stories that remind us who we could be. Hit that button. Join this family. And share this video with one person who needs to remember that courage still exists.